Sparta was a polis in ancient Greece. A polis was a city-state. It was a city, the land around it, and the people who lived there. Greece did not have one king over all the land. It had many poli. Athens was one poli. Corinth was one poli. Sparta was one poli. Each poli had its own way of life. Sparta was in the south of Greece. It was in a place called Laconia. There were mountains around the land. There was also good land for farming. A river ran through the land. The people of Sparta used the land to grow food. They grew wheat, grapes, and olives. They also kept sheep and goats. Long ago, people called the Dorians came to this part of Greece. The Dorians were a Greek-speaking people. They came from the north, or from places near the north. The Dorians took the land around Sparta. They fought the people who were living there before them. The Dorians became the rulers of Sparta. The people of Sparta were not all the same. There were three main groups of people. The first group was the Spartan citizens. The second group was the Perioikoi. The third group was the Helots. The Spartan citizens were a small group. They were Dorian people and their sons. They had full rights in Sparta. They could take part in the city's meetings. They could fight in the Spartan army. They had land, but in many cases, they did not farm the land by themselves. They spent much of their time training to be soldiers. The Perioikoi were another group of people in Sparta. Perioikoi is a Greek word. It means people who live around. The Perioikoi lived in towns and villages around the main city of Sparta. They were not full Spartan citizens. They could not join the main meeting of Spartan citizens. They could not rule Sparta. However, they were not slaves. The Perioikoi were semi-free people. Semi-free means that they had some freedom, but not all freedom. They could live with their families. They could work. They could have homes. They could make and sell things. But they had to obey Sparta. They also had to fight for Sparta when Sparta needed soldiers. The Perioikoi did much of the work of making things. They made shoes, clothes, pots, tools, and weapons. They worked with wood, stone, iron, and other things. Some Perioikoi were farmers. Some were traders. Some made things in shops. They helped Sparta by doing business and making goods. Spartan citizens did not spend much time in shops. They did not want a life of easy work, rich clothes, fine food, and many things. At least, this was the ideal of Sparta. Sparta wanted its citizens to be strong soldiers. So the Perioikoi did much of the work of trade and production. Production means making things. A person who makes pots does production. A person who makes shoes does production. A person who makes swords does production. The Perioikoi were important because Sparta needed food, tools, clothes, and weapons. Spartan soldiers could not live without the work of the Perioikoi. The Helots were the largest group in Sparta. The Helots were people who had lived in the land before the Dorians took it. The Dorians conquered them. To conquer means to win a war and take control of a people or a land. After the Dorians won, many local people became Helots. The Helots were not free people. They were under the control of Sparta. They were like bound farmers. A bound farmer is a farmer who cannot freely leave the land. The Helots worked on the land for Spartan citizens. They grew food. They gave part of the food to the Spartan citizens. The Spartan citizens used this food to live. The Helots worked very hard. They planted seeds. They cut wheat. They picked grapes. They cared for animals. They carried water. They made food. They did many kinds of farm work. The Helots had families and homes, but they were not free. They could not simply leave Sparta. They could not choose their own life in the same way as free people. The Spartan rulers watched them closely. Sparta feared the Helots because there were many more Helots than Spartan citizens. This was a great problem for Sparta. The Spartan citizens were few. The Helots were many. If the Helots fought against Sparta together, the Spartan citizens could be in great danger. Because of this fear, Sparta built a hard and strong military system. A military system is a system for war and soldiers. Sparta wanted every male citizen to become a strong soldier. The city wanted soldiers who could obey orders, fight together, and not run away. Sparta thought that a strong army was needed to control the helots and to fight other polis. Sparta is often called a military state. This means that war, soldiers, training, and army life were very important in the state. In Sparta, the army was not only one part of life. It was at the center of life for male citizens. Spartan boys began hard training when they were young. When a Spartan boy was about 7 years old, he left his home for training. This training system is often called the agoge. Agoge is a Greek word for Spartan education and training. In the agoge, boys lived with other boys. They learned to obey. They learned to live with little food. They learned to sleep in hard places. They learned to run, jump, fight, and use weapons. They learned songs about Sparta. They learned that the city was more important than one person. The boys did not live an easy life. They had simple clothes. They had simple food. They were told not to complain. They were told to be brave. Their teachers tested them. The boys had to show strength, control, and courage. Sparta wanted boys to become soldiers who could live through hard times. A soldier might have to walk far. A soldier might have to sleep outside. A soldier might have little food. A soldier might see danger. Sparta wanted its men to be ready for all of this. The boys also learned to fight as a group. Greek soldiers often fought in a line called a phalanx. A phalanx was a close line of soldiers. Each soldier held a large shield. Each soldier used a long spear. The soldiers stood near each other. They moved and fought together. In a phalanx, one soldier had to trust the soldiers next to him. If one man ran away, the line could break. If the line broke, the enemy could come through. So Spartan soldiers learned to stand firm. They learned to protect the man beside them. Spartan men stayed in military life for many years. Even after they became adults, they continued to train and eat with other men. They lived for the army. They were expected to be ready to fight for Sparta. Spartan women also had a different life from many women in other Greek polis. In many Greek places, women stayed mainly at home. In Sparta, girls did physical training. They ran, threw things, and took part in sports. Spartans believed that strong women would have strong children. Spartan women had more freedom than many other Greek women. Some could own land. Some could speak more freely. This does not mean that women had the same rights as men. They could not take part in the main political meeting of citizens. Still, their life was different from the life of many women in Athens. Sparta had a special form of rule. It had 2 kings at the same time. This is called dual kingship. Dual means 2. Kingship means rule by a king. So dual kingship means rule by 2 kings. The 2 kings came from 2 royal families. The 2 kings did not rule alone. They had important jobs, especially in war and religion. One king could lead an army in war. The kings also took part in religious acts for the city. Why did Sparta have 2 kings? We cannot know every reason with full certainty. One reason may have been that 2 old groups joined to make Sparta. Another reason may have been that Sparta did not want all power in the hands of only one king. With 2 kings, one king could not easily control everything. However, the kings were not all powerful. Sparta had other groups that shared power. One important group was the Gerousia. The Gerousia was a council of old men. It had 28 old Spartan men and the 2 kings. The old men had to be at least 60 years old. The Gerousia talked about important matters. It prepared ideas for the people's meeting. It could also judge very serious cases. Old age was respected in Sparta. The city thought that old men had long experience and could help guide the state. Another important group was the ephors. There were 5 ephors each year. Ephors were officers of Sparta. They were chosen from Spartan citizens. They had much power in daily government. They watched the kings. They helped control the city. They could call meetings. They could judge some cases. The ephors were important because they helped stop one person from becoming too strong. Even the kings had to listen to the ephors. This was one way Sparta tried to keep balance in its government. Spartan citizens also had a meeting. In this meeting, adult male citizens could take part. They listened to ideas and made choices. They could say yes or no to some plans. However, the meeting did not have the same open discussion that people had in Athens. Athens is often known for democracy. Democracy means rule by the people. In Athens, many male citizens could speak and vote in meetings. Sparta was different. Sparta had kings, old men, ephors, and a meeting of citizens. It was not a democracy in the Athenian way. Still, Sparta wanted equality among its Spartan citizens. This did not mean equality for all people in Sparta. The Perioikoi did not have full citizen rights. The Helots were not free. Women did not have the same political rights as male citizens. When Sparta spoke of equality, it mainly meant equality among the small group of Spartan male citizens. Sparta did not want some citizens to become very rich while others became very poor. If one citizen had much land, much money, fine clothes, and many servants, he might think he was better than other citizens. Sparta feared this kind of difference. Sparta wanted its citizens to live in a simple way. It wanted them to eat simple food, wear simple clothes, and care about the army more than money. The city believed that rich living could make people weak. It believed that too much love of money could hurt the unity of the citizens. Unity means being together as one group. In battle, soldiers needed unity. In city life, Spartan citizens also needed unity. Sparta wanted its citizens to feel that they were equals, and that they had the same duty to the state. For this reason, Sparta was said to ban the use of gold and silver money. Gold and silver were valuable metals. Many Greek polis used coins made from silver and sometimes gold. Coins made trade easier. A person could sell food and get coins. Then the person could use the coins to buy clothes or tools. But Sparta did not want its citizens to love gold and silver. Spartan tradition said that gold and silver coins were not allowed. Instead, Sparta used iron money. Iron is a hard metal. It is useful for tools and weapons. But iron money was heavy and not easy to carry. A small amount of gold can be worth much money. A person can carry it easily. Silver coins are also easy to carry. But iron is heavy. If money is made of iron, a person needs a large and heavy amount to buy many things. This made it harder to collect great wealth. It also made trade with other places more difficult. A trader from another polis might not want heavy iron money. So iron money helped Sparta keep a simple way of life, at least in the story and ideal of Sparta. The use of iron money was connected to Spartan ideas about equality. Sparta did not want citizens to show off rich gold cups, silver coins, or fine things from faraway lands. It wanted citizens to care about duty, training, and the state. However, we should understand one important point. The ideal of Sparta and real life were not always exactly the same. Every society has rules and ideals, but people do not always live perfectly by them. Some Spartans may have had more land or more power than others. Some people may have found ways to get rich things. But the Spartan ideal was simple living and citizen equality. Sparta also had common meals for its male citizens. These meals are often called syssitia. In the syssitia, Spartan men ate together in groups. They did not always eat alone at home with their families. Eating together was part of military life. At these meals, the food was simple. One famous Spartan food was black broth. Black broth was a dark soup. It was made with meat and other simple things. Other Greeks sometimes laughed at Spartan food. They thought it was not very good. But Spartans believed that simple food helped make strong people. The common meals also made citizens feel close to each other. Rich food was not the point. The point was to share the same life. A rich citizen and a less rich citizen were supposed to eat the same kind of food in the same group. To be a full Spartan citizen, a man had to meet many rules. He had to finish his training. He had to take part in the common meals. He had to be able to give food to his meal group. He had to be ready to serve in the army. If he could not do these things, he could lose his full place among the citizens. This shows that Spartan equality was hard to keep. A citizen needed land and food from the Helots in order to support his place in the common meals. If his land did not give enough food, he could have a problem. If he lost his place in the common meals, he could lose his full citizen rights. So the Spartan system depended on the work of the Helots. Spartan citizens could train for war because Helots worked on the farms. The citizens could eat at common meals because helots grew food. The citizens could live as soldiers because other people did much of the daily work. This was not fair to the helots. The helots worked, but they did not have freedom. They gave food to others. They lived under fear and control. Their hard life was one reason why Sparta could have a strong army. Sparta was strong, but it was also afraid. It was afraid of helot revolts. A revolt is when people fight against those who rule them. The helots had good reason to hate the Spartan rulers. They wanted a better life and freedom. At times, the helots did revolt. One famous revolt happened after a great earthquake. An earthquake is when the ground shakes. Sparta had a very strong earthquake in the 5th century before Christ. Many people died. Buildings fell. Sparta was weak for a time. After the earthquake, many helots rose up against Sparta. They hoped to break free. The Spartans had to fight hard to control them. The revolt showed that Sparta's system was not safe or easy. The city needed soldiers not only for wars with other Greek cities, but also to control the people under it. Sparta was also careful about people from outside. It did not welcome many foreign ideas. A foreign person is a person from another land. Sparta feared that foreign ideas, foreign money, and foreign ways of life could change its citizens. The city wanted citizens to follow Spartan rules. It did not want them to become soft, rich, or too interested in trade. This is one reason why Sparta was less known for art, books, and big buildings than Athens. Athens had many writers, teachers, artists, and speakers. Athens built great buildings and made beautiful statues. Sparta was famous for soldiers. This does not mean that Spartans had no songs, no art, or no ideas. They did have songs and religious acts. But the image of Sparta was mainly the image of a hard military polis. Spartan boys learned reading and writing, but these were not the main parts of their education. Physical training and military training were more important. Sparta wanted clear and short speech. Spartans were known for saying things in few words. The word laconic comes from Laconia, the land of Sparta. Laconic means using very few words. The word comes from the idea that Spartans gave short, strong answers. Whether every story about Spartan short speech is true or not, the idea became famous. One story says that a foreign king sent Sparta a message. The message said that if he came into Sparta's land, he would destroy it. The Spartan answer was only one word: if. This story shows the image of Spartan courage and short speech. Sparta became a strong power in Greece. Its army was feared by other polis. Spartan soldiers wore red clothes in battle. They carried shields and spears. They fought in close lines. They trained for many years, so other Greeks respected their skill and courage. But Sparta did not always win. War is not only about strong soldiers. It is also about food, money, ships, allies, leaders, and luck. An ally is a friend in war. A polis may join with another polis to fight a common enemy. For a long time, Sparta led a group of polis called the Peloponnesian League. The Peloponnese was the large area of land in the south of Greece. Sparta was in the Peloponnese. Many nearby polis were Sparta's allies. Athens led another group of polis. Athens had a strong navy. A navy is a group of warships. Athens had many ships and sailors. Sparta was stronger on land. Athens was stronger at sea. Athens and Sparta became great rivals. A rival is a person or group that wants to be stronger than another person or group. The rivalry between Athens and Sparta led to a long war called the Peloponnesian War. The Peloponnesian War was a war between Athens and Sparta, and between their allies. It lasted for many years. It was hard for all Greek people. People died in battle. People died from disease. Farms were destroyed. Cities lost money and people. At first, Sparta had a strong army on land, but Athens had strong ships. Athens used its walls and ships to protect itself. Sparta could attack the land around Athens, but it could not easily beat Athens at sea. Persia was a large empire to the east of Greece. With Persian money, Sparta built more ships. This helped Sparta fight Athens at sea. In the end, Sparta won the Peloponnesian War. Athens lost its empire and its strong position. Sparta became the leading power in Greece for a time. This was a great success for Sparta. However, Sparta's time as the strongest Greek polis did not last very long. Sparta had problems. It had too few full citizens. Its system was very hard. Many people in Sparta had no rights. The Helots still had reason to hate Spartan rule. Other Greek polis also did not want Sparta to control them. After Sparta won the war, it tried to rule other places. But many Greeks did not like Spartan rule. Sparta had been famous for saying that it fought for freedom against Athens. Yet after it won, Sparta sometimes acted like a ruler over other polis. Thebes was another important Greek polis. Thebes was north of Athens. Thebes fought against Sparta. In a famous battle called the Battle of Leuctra, Thebes beat Sparta. The Battle of Leuctra took place in the 4th century before Christ. It was a great shock. For a long time, people had thought that Sparta's army could not be beaten on land. But Theban soldiers won. After this defeat, Sparta lost much of its power. The Helots in Messenia also became free from Spartan control. Messenia was land west of Sparta. Sparta had controlled the people there for a long time. When Sparta became weak, the Messenians had a chance to become free. The loss of Messenia was very serious for Sparta. Messenia had good farmland. Helots had worked there and sent food to Sparta. Without this land and this work, Sparta had less food and less power. Sparta continued to exist, but it was no longer the great military power that it had been. Other powers rose in Greece. Later, Macedonia became very strong. Macedonia was north of the main Greek polis. Philip II of Macedonia made Macedonia powerful. His son was Alexander the Great. Alexander led his army into Asia and made a very large empire. By this time, the old power of Sparta was much smaller. Even so, Sparta was not forgotten. People remembered Sparta because its way of life was so different. People remembered the hard training of Spartan boys. They remembered the strong army. They remembered the 2 kings. They remembered the Perioikoi and the Helots. They remembered iron money and simple living. The story of Sparta can teach us many things. It can teach us that a strong state may depend on the work of people without freedom. Spartan citizens had time for training, because Helots worked on the land. The strength of Sparta was built on an unfair system. It can also teach us that equality can have a limited meaning. Sparta talked about equality among citizens, but only a small group were citizens. The Perioikoi had fewer rights. The Helots had no freedom. Women had some freedom in daily life, but they did not have the same political rights as men. So when we hear the word equality, we should ask, equality for whom? Are all people included, or are only some people included? This is an important question in history and in life. Sparta also teaches us about fear. Sparta feared the Helots, because the Helots were many. This fear shaped Spartan life. It helped create strict rules, hard training, and military control. A society can become very hard when its rulers are afraid. Sparta wanted strong citizens. It wanted citizens who could fight and obey. It wanted citizens who did not care too much about gold, silver, or soft living. These ideas made Sparta famous, but these same ideas also made Spartan life very strict. Not every child could choose his own future in Sparta. A Spartan boy was expected to become a soldier. His life was planned by the state. He had little chance to choose another kind of work. But it limited the lives of many people. The Perioikoi had a different role. They made things and traded. They helped Sparta have tools, weapons, and other goods. They were important to Spartan life, but they did not have full political rights. They were semi-free. The word Perioikoi is important because it shows that Sparta was not made of only soldiers and Helots. There were also people between these two groups. The Perioikoi were free in some ways, but they were under Spartan control. They could work and live in their own towns, but they could not rule Sparta. The word Helots is also important. Helots were not the same as ordinary free farmers. They were tied to the land and forced to work for Spartan citizens. They were a large part of the population. Their work gave food to Sparta. The word dual kingship is important too. Sparta had 2 kings, not 1 king. This was unusual. The kings had important jobs, but they did not have all power. The Gerousia, the ephors, and the citizen meeting also had roles in government.
The use of iron money is another important point. Sparta was said to ban gold and silver coins so that citizens would not become too rich or too different from one another. Iron was heavy and hard to use for large trade. This fit the Spartan ideal of simple life. Gold and silver can be beautiful. They can also help people trade. But Sparta believed that too much love of gold and silver could hurt the state. Sparta wanted citizens to value courage and duty more than money. We should not think that every Spartan person was exactly the same. Human life is always more complex than one simple story. Some people may have liked Spartan rules. Some may have hated them. Some may have had more land. Some may have had less. Some may have been brave in war. Some may have been afraid. Still, the main image of Sparta is clear. Sparta was a Dorian polis with a strong military system. A small group of Spartan citizens ruled. The Perioikoi did trade and production. The Helots worked the land as unfree farmers. Sparta had dual kingship with two kings. Sparta trained its male citizens very hard for war. It tried to keep equality among citizens. It was said to ban gold and silver money and use iron money. When we study Sparta, it is useful to compare it with Athens. Athens and Sparta were both Greek polis, but they were very different. Athens was more open to trade, ships, speaking, art, and democracy. Sparta was more focused on land, army life, discipline, and control. Athens had many people from other places in its port. A port is a place where ships come and go. Athens bought and sold goods from many lands. Athens used silver coins. Rich people in Athens could spend money on fine things, buildings, and shows. Sparta did not want this kind of life for its citizens. Sparta wanted to limit luxury. Luxury means very rich and comfortable things that people do not really need. Fine gold cups, soft beds, rich food, and costly clothes are examples of luxury. Sparta believed luxury could make citizens weak. It believed that a soldier should be able to live without much. A soldier should not need fine food or a soft bed. A soldier should be ready for cold, hunger, pain, and danger. This idea can sound strong and brave, but it also had a hard side. Children had little choice. Helots suffered. The state had great control over people's lives. A strong army came with a high cost. The Spartan system was also hard to continue for a long time. A small number of citizens had to rule a much larger number of Helots. If the number of citizens became smaller, the problem became worse. Sparta could not easily make many new citizens, because full citizenship had strict rules. As time passed, the number of full Spartan citizens went down. Some citizens lost land. Some could not give food to the common meals. Some lost their full rights. This made Sparta weaker, money, and friends. Sparta had strong soldiers, but it had problems with people and money. Its dislike of trade and rich money may have helped its simple ideal, but it could also make it harder to compete with states that had more money and ships. Sparta's story is not only a story about battles. It is also a story about work. The Helots worked on farms. The Perioikoi made goods. The Spartan citizens trained for war. Each group had a different place. The system gave power to a small group and hard work to many others. In ancient history, many societies had slaves or unfree workers. Sparta was not the only place with unfair systems. But Sparta depended on the Helots in a special and very clear way. The fear of Helot revolt shaped Spartan life deeply. The Spartan rulers wanted to keep order. Order means that people follow rules and life is controlled. But their order was based on force. Force means the use of power, often with soldiers or weapons. The Helots did not freely choose to work for Sparta. This is why we should look at Sparta from more than one side. We can respect the courage of soldiers, but we should also remember the pain of the Helots. We can understand the Spartan wish for equality, but we should see that it was equality only for some people. We can see the strength of discipline, but we should also see the loss of freedom. Discipline means control of oneself and obeying rules. Spartan discipline was very strong. Boys learned not to cry easily. Men learned to obey orders. Soldiers learned to stand in line. The city tried to make everyone follow the same hard way of life. In some ways,
This discipline helped Sparta become powerful. In other ways, it made Sparta less able to change. A state that cannot change may have trouble when the world changes around it. Other Greek polis changed through trade, new ideas, new ships, and new ways of fighting. Sparta often tried to keep old ways. Old ways can give people a strong sense of identity. Identity means the idea of who you are. Spartans were proud to be Spartans. They were proud of their training. They were proud of their courage. They were proud of their simple life. They were proud of their army. They believed that their polis was special. This pride could help them in battle. A soldier who believes in his city may fight bravely, but too much pride can also make people unable to learn from others. Sparta sometimes had this problem. The Greek world was full of many different polis. Some were near the sea, some were in the mountains. Some were rich through trade, some were strong in war. Sparta was one of the most famous because it chose such a strict path. The people of Sparta did not all live in the same way. This is important to remember. A Spartan citizen had one life. A Perioikos had another life. A Helot had another life. A woman had another life. A child had another life. The word Sparta can hide these differences if we are not careful. A Spartan citizen was expected to be a soldier. He had political rights, but he also had many duties. He could take part in the meeting, but he had to train and fight. He was part of the ruling group, but he had to follow strict rules. A Perioikos could work in trade and production. He had more freedom than a Helot, but less power than a Spartan citizen. He was needed by Sparta, but he was not fully included in Spartan political life. A Helot worked the land. The Helot gave food to the citizen. The Helot had very little freedom. The Helot was watched and controlled. The Helot's life was hard, and the Helot could hope for freedom. Spartan women were expected to have strong bodies and raise strong children. They had more space in life than many Greek women, especially because Spartan men spent so much time in military groups. Yet Spartan women were still part of a society ruled by men. The two kings were important symbols of Sparta. They led in war and religion, but they did not rule alone. The Gerousia and the Ephors limited their power. This mixed system made Sparta different from a simple monarchy. A monarchy is ruled by one king or queen. Sparta was not a simple monarchy because it had two kings and other ruling groups. An oligarchy is ruled by a small group. Sparta had parts of an oligarchy because a small group of citizens and old men had much power. It also had a citizen meeting. So Sparta had a mixed system. The Spartan government was made to keep the city stable. Stable means not changing quickly and not falling apart. The rulers wanted to stop one person from taking all power. They also wanted to stop the citizens from fighting each other over money and land. The ban on gold and silver money was part of this goal. If citizens could easily get rich, some might become much stronger than others. Sparta feared this. Iron money was a symbol of a simple and equal citizen life. Iron was also linked to war. Iron could make weapons. A spear point, a sword, or a tool could be made from iron. So iron fit the image of Sparta as a hard military polis. When you remember Sparta, you can remember 4 key ideas. First, the Perioikoi were semi-free people. They lived around Sparta and worked in trade, crafts, and production. Second, the Helots were unfree farmers. They were conquered local people who worked the land for Spartan citizens. Third, Sparta had dual kingship. 2 kings ruled at the same time, but other groups, such as the Gerousia and the Ephors, also had power. Fourth, Sparta tried to keep equality among citizens and prevent large differences between rich and poor. For this reason, gold and silver money were said to be banned, and iron money was used. These 4 ideas are connected. The Perioikoi made goods. The Helots grew food. The citizens trained as soldiers. The 2 kings helped lead the state and the army. Iron money and simple living were part of the plan to keep citizens equal and focused on duty. Sparta could not exist in the same way without the Perioikoi and the Helots. The citizens were able to train because other people worked. This is the central fact of Spartan society. The Spartan system was strong, but it was not kind to everyone. It gave honor and rights to a small group. It gave less freedom to the Perioikoi. It gave almost no freedom to the helots. It asked citizens to give much of their own life to the state. History is not only about saying that one society was good or bad. It is about trying to understand how people lived, why they made choices, and what happened because of those choices. Sparta chose military strength, discipline, and control. These choices made it powerful. They also created fear, unfairness, and weakness. Sparta became famous across Greece. Other people told stories about Spartan courage. Some people admired Sparta, some people feared Sparta. Some people did both. Even today, the name Sparta makes many people think of soldiers, strength, and hard training. But we should remember the whole picture. Sparta was more than soldiers. It was a polis with farmers, workers, women, children, rulers, perioikoi, and helots. It had land, food, laws, meetings, kings, and religious acts. It had hopes, fears, and problems. The Dorian Spartan citizens ruled over people they had conquered. The perioikoi carried out trade and production. The helots cultivated the land as unfree farmers. The city used dual kingship and other groups to rule. It trained citizens for war. It tried to stop great differences between rich and poor. It did not allow gold and silver money in its ideal system, and it used iron money. This is Sparta, a strong but strict polis, a place of soldiers and hard training, a place where a small group of citizens tried to live as equals,
and a place where many other people carried the heavy work of the state.